All right, everything's good. We can start. Yes. Right. Hello everyone.
Hi
This is the
guys.
video for Code Along 2, which is focused on writing classes. So in this Code Along, we'll go over a few general concepts related to classes in Java. Some concepts we'll go over are what goes into the constructor. What is a constructor? Where do we put instance variables, and what do we assign our instance variables? Also, we'll look at how to write getter and setter methods or accessor mutator methods. Um, and we'll also practice writing other methods within a class, outside of the class, using instance variables and the getters and setters. Great. So to start off, we'll just do a quick overview of the stencil code and then make our changes.
All right. Okay. Starting off in the main class, of course, you see we have our main function, and we're creating an instance of a restaurant called the Villa. Um, and then we're having the Villa call on one of its methods, CMenu. And then we're gonna later on we'll see, what these methods do and what the constructor for restaurant looks like. So speaking of, we'll go take a look at the restaurant class. Looks like a lot right now, but one important thing I want to point out is this instance variable up here of a chef called main chef. Um, and so moving on, we have this restaurant class, this restaurant constructor that's calling on create menu. And then we have two methods, create menu method and the CMenu method. And as I said earlier, we're going to learn what these methods do and how we can use it in our code. And then finally, we're going to go over to our chef class. And once again, I really want to point out these two instance variables right here, a string instance variable called signature dish and an int instance variable called signature price. And then we have these two methods over here, set signature dish and get signature dish. And as we said earlier in lecture on Thursday, these are called our setters and getters functions or accessor and mutator functions. So later on, we're going to see how, we will use these to retrieve information about our instance variables from Chef. So starting off, if you look at this class, it seems like we're missing something. And if you think it's the constructor, you'd be correct. So to start off, we're going to create our constructor, following the same, procedure for creating a constructor. It would be public, the name of the class, in this case, chef. And for us, we want to provide our chef a name. So in this case, we're going to pass through a string parameter called name. Okay, awesome. So now, an important thing that we need to do whenever we have instance variables is initialize them. And whenever we initialize instance variables, we want to do that in the constructor. So to start off, we're going to follow this procedure of saying this signature dish equals, and then providing it with some sort of value. So in this case, we're just going to think of just like a random value. Let's say pasta. Make sure that the value you're providing always matches up with the name, with the type of the instance variable. And so now I'm going to use the same process with signature price. And in this case, we're going to provide it with an int, and like to reflect the type. And we'll just say 5, for example. Okay, awesome. So now we initialized our instance variables in the constructor. And then last but not least, we're gonna make use of this name parameter and have a print statement saying the chef's name. So we're gonna do system.out ln and then just provide I am chef passing through the name. Okay, awesome. And then just a quick reminder that when we're initializing our instance variables, it's always important to do it in the constructor. Technically, we could do it in any method we want, But in this case, we want to do it in the constructor so that whenever we create a new chef, we're providing these instance variables values immediately so that we can use them later on with different methods. So now I'm going to pass over to Juan so we can work on some getters and setters.
Yes, thank you, Brendan. Yeah, so if we take a look in the chef class, like Brendan mentioned, we already have an accessor method or a setter method for the signature dish. So we can take a look at this method. Public void set signature dish has one parameter, dish, of type string, and what it does with that is it assigns this dot signature dish to be the new dish. So this method can actually allow another class to call on the chef to set a signature dish to a new dish. So right in the constructor, we set signature dish to pasta. But if later on we called set signature dish and passed in a different dish, say bread, a signature dish would no longer be pasta and it would now be bread. Um, so that is how the setter method works in this class. We also have a getter method or an accessor method. Uh, Different from set signature dish, this method has a return type of string and it actually has no parameters. So that means that when this method is called, we don't have to pass in any information or any arguments, and it will return to us this dot signature dish. So whatever the chef's signature dish is at the time, that is the value that will get returned when you call get signature dish. So using these methods as a reference, we can now write a new setter and getter method for the signature price. So try to pause for a bit here and take a crack at that. All right, awesome. So in order to start writing our accessor method, we'll start with public. And because we're writing an accessor, which is a getter, we need to make sure that we specify the return type. And since we're returning the signature price, the return type should be the same type as the signature prices type, which we can find in the line where we declared. So signature price is declared as an int. So we'll do public, and then we'll call this method get signature. And like our get signature dish method, we won't actually need any parameters here. For the method definition, we'll need to start with a return statement. So I'll do that with return. And we'll be returning this dot signature. Nice. So this is our accessor method for our signature price. And now we can write a mutator or getter method or setter method for our signature price. So this one will be void because we won't be returning anything. And we'll name it set signature. And then when writing this, we want a new price to set the signature price to. So we can do that by specifying a parameter to be the same type as the type of the signature price, which we said we can find up here to be int. So we would write int price. And the past in price will represent the new price that we can assign to the signature price by writing this dot signature price equals price. Great. And now we have two new methods in the chef class that can access or mutate the signature price instance variable. Another important thing is we wouldn't otherwise be able to do this without these methods because our variable is private. So in order to expose this variable, we can do that using our getter and setter methods. Great. And now to actually use these.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Juan. So now that we have our getter and setter methods, we're going to take a look back at the restaurant class. So if we go back, we're going to go up to our constructor, and we're going to uncomment this line once the chef class has a constructor, which we just did. And what this does, we have this dot main chef equals new chef Andy. And what this does is what we just did earlier in the chef class, it's initializing our main chef instance variable. In other words, we're creating a new chef and setting the reference to our main chef instance variable. So this is great, but Andy is a little lonely, right? So we're going to go ahead and create a new instance variable of a chef called sous chef. So I want you guys to pause and try to do that right now. Um, okay, great. So to do this, we're just going to kind of copy the same procedure we did earlier, but with a new chef, with an instance variable of chef. So we're going to go to the top of the class, say private chef, sous chef. Awesome. And so now that we declared our sous chef instance variable, we need to initialize it. So we do the same thing as main chef, sous chef, and set its reference to a new chef. Okay, great. But if you look, Java's yelling at us. And the reason why is because if we remember, in our constructor, in the chef class, we specified that it needs to take in a string name. So to do so, to make Java happy, we're going to pass in a name. In this case, let's call it Bob. Okay, great. Um, so now we're going to go ahead and add the new chef signature dish to the create menu class. So I'm going to pass it back over to Juan.
Awesome. Great. So in create menu, there's this to do that we see to uncomment this method call, which updates the signature price for the chef. So in create menu, we're now going to assign the signature and dishes and prices for our chefs to replace the initial values, which were pasta, that is the default value that we set in the constructor. We're giving our chefs a new specialty in the restaurant. So the main chef, its signature dish is now cookies, and the signature price is now 6. So now using these getters and setters, we'll practice with the sous chef and do the same to give it a new dish as well. Um, so the sous chef will set its signature dish. Says dish. And let's say it's now going to brownies. We're going from a restaurant to bakery. And then we have to update the price as well. And we can update the price using the setter method. Set signature price and give it the new price. So let's say brownies are 3. Great. So now we've created a new menu, and this will get called in the constructor. So when we initialize our restaurant, it will make a main chef. It'll initialize it to be a chef named Andy. And then it'll initialize a sous chef to be a chef named Bob. And then we'll create the new menu by calling this dot create menu, which will set Andy's signature dish to be cookies, the signature price to be 6, and then set Bob or the sous chef's signature dish to be brownies and the signature price to be 3. Great.
Right. Awesome. So now that we've updated the signature dishes for main chef and sous chef, we want to be able to visualize and see that change in the terminal. So if we remember in our main class, the Villa restaurant, it calls on C menu. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at that method. So we're going to go ahead and uncomment this. We're going to delete these 2 lines for now. And okay, I know this might look a little crazy, but I'm going to walk through it. In reality, all that this is doing is it's utilizing our getter methods. If we remember earlier, the signature dishes for main chef are private, so we can't access it unless we use one of our methods, in this case, the getter method. So all this is doing is it's a print line where it's going to print out the main chef's signature dish. Because if you remember, get signature dish is going to return a string of the main chef's signature dish instance variable. And then likewise, it's going to receive in return the signature price, which we remember was an int, And it's also really important to um, understand that these signature dishes were modified. So initially, as Juan stated, when we created the new chef Andy and the new chef Bob, these instance variables were pasta and five. But once create menu was called, the signature dish for the main chef changed the cookies. The signature dish for brownies, the signature dish for the sous chef changed the brownies because we're a bakery now, I guess. And the prices were changed. So when this statement is run, it's going to reflect cookies and it's going to reflect cookies for main chef, not pasta. So now we're going to go ahead and do the same procedure for a sous chef. So I want you guys to take a minute and see if you can replicate this with the sous chef. Okay, great. So to do the print out the sous chef's signature dish, we're going to do the same thing. It's a print statement, and we're going to call on sous chef's signature dish using its get signature dish getter method. And as I said earlier, that's just going to return a string relating to the signature dish instance variable, which is brownies. And so now I'm gonna add a little comma in between, and we're gonna call on sous chef get signature price. And all this is doing is, as I said earlier, when this is called, it's gonna return brownies in three. Okay, awesome.
Great. So now that we've printed the menu, we can now try to make our chefs cook something. So we'll follow this to do here. And we'll do this dot main chef. And we want it to cook, so we'll do dot cook. And the main chef, let's have the main chef cook his signature dish. So we can get the signature dish by doing this dot main chef dot get signature dish. Cool. And then we can have our sous chef cook something. But let's say that it's lunchtime, so we don't actually want the sous chef to cook brownies. So instead of doing get signature dish for the sous chef, we'll pass in a different string, like maybe turkey sandwich.
Nice.
Great. Um, but so far this isn't really working because if we look at the chef class, whenever we want to call a method on a chef, we're restricted only to the methods that have been defined in the class. So we can tell the chef to set its signature dish or set its signature price, but we actually can't ask it to cook without defining the method. So we'll have Brendan write up this cook method.
Okay, awesome. So, as this to-do statement says, we need to create a cook method for our chefs to call on. So, I want you guys to really quickly think how we might be able to create a method for this. Take a second, and then I'm going to go ahead and create it. So, okay, great. So in this case scenario, right, we want to create a cook method that's just going to print out cooking blank. So in this case, since we're just printing anything, we're not returning anything, our return type is going to be void. And then I want you guys to think about what we should use as parameter. Um, as Juan did earlier, he was passing in our signature dish, which is a string, and then he was also passing in a turkey sandwich, which was also a string. So in this case, we would want it to be a string parameter called meal. So now, as I said earlier, we're just going to want it to print out cooking meal. So now we go back to our restaurant class, Java's happy because the cook method exists. And so finally, we're going to go ahead, we're going to compile this so everything gets printed out. Remember, whenever you're going, remember, whenever you go to compile, you always want to make sure you're in the folder or directory you're working in. So in this case, I want to cd into codalong2. To compile, do Java C star.java. And then we're going to go back to src, and Java codalong2.main, since that's what we want to run. And if you see, we have I am Chef Andy, I am Chef Bob, cookies 6, brownies 3, cooking the cookies, cooking the turkey sandwich. And that is it. And if we would just remember, it's saying cookies and brownies because we modified the instance variables of main chef and sous chef. So that is the end of our code along. Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it. If you have any questions about this concept or any of these concepts, feel free to post on Ed or attend project hours. We're going to have a lot more code alongs to come. So please stay tuned and thank you guys.
Ooh, thank you.